Hello, listeners, and welcome to Neuroscience Unplugged, where we invite aspirational individuals to share their stories of nurturing resilience. And I'm very excited to welcome Safiya Abidali today, who is a mum, a founder, a coach, student at King's College London, who is in her final year, and she's also a published neuroscientist. Welcome, Safiya. How are
Thank you
you?
so much for having me today. I'm well, and I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. We're so excited to talk about how you've chosen to nurture resilience because there have been many events in your life. You were married at 18. You also shared that you have learned from a business that was not successful, how to rebuild into a successful business. And you're also a student at King's College London, which that on its own is going to be enough to build resilience, as I'm sure anyone knows who's been at that university in the
Yes.
best way possible. You also are a mum to three beautiful children.
Yes. Yeah.
Incredible. So I know the
Thank
listeners
you.
are dying to know all about you, all about how you nurtured resilience. But before we talk about that, I do want to share with the listeners that Safia, ever since I've started to work with her and got to know her, she has this beautiful light about her that no matter what is happening, she has this strong grounding presence about her. And so you feel like everything's going to be okay when you're around her. We met when we were writing a paper together, and she has this quiet, unreserved leadership about her, which makes you think, this is how I want to lead. So she leads by example. I just wanted to start by saying that. And that's why I'm so excited to hear about how you've come to this place, how you've built the resilience to become the person you are today. Fire away.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That touched my heart. Thank you. So, how did I come to this place? Yes, it's been a long, long journey. And if I kind of start at the beginning of my coaching journey, which is, I think, where things started to change for me, it was COVID. And I was working in my dad's business in the family company. With things closing down around the world, people going into lockdown, a lot of my day to day no longer existed. And I had a lot of time to reflect and to really think about my journey to where I got me to that place of where I was and what I really wanted to do in the future. And my dad trained as a chemical engineer. And then he started his own business in electronic components. And that really wasn't something I was passionate about, but it was something that provided me flexibility being a mom of three small kids at the time. And it served me well for that moment in my life when I started. But then during COVID, I realized that it really doesn't serve me and it's really not the direction I want to go in. So I took a leap of faith and I decided to come out of the family business and retrain and qualify as a coach. So I did my coach training with a company called Ride the Wave. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a personal growth journey myself. Because one thing they don't tell you when you're training to be a coach is that you will be coached as well. It's almost like therapy. When you train to become a therapist or a counselor, you are counseled in that process. And through that coaching journey, I really got to know myself a little bit more and my key strengths and my interests. And I love coaching. I love helping my clients. I love celebrating them and seeing their successes. It provides me so much joy. And I finished my coaching. I started a business, which I called Safiya the Coach. And I did my best to go out, put myself out there, get one-to-one clients, but it was very difficult. I think I'm the type of person that struggles to sell myself. And coming from a business where I was selling a product to selling a service and selling a service, which is essentially you, it's hard to take that no and to face that rejection. And I found that quite difficult. So I could have maybe persevered more, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to fail fast. I'm going to fail forward and I'm going to change my niche. So doing my master's was something I always wanted to do. I had my son in my final year of my bachelor's. So Yeah, when I
I
graduated.
mean, we've just got to pause there. You said you had your son in your final year of your undergraduate.
Yes, yes.
Wow. I mean, did you apply for extenuating circumstances?
So, you know what? I'll tell you this story, and it's crazy because it was February half term. He was born February 14th. He's a Valentine's baby. And I went into uni on Friday. And I remember I was wearing my pregnancy coat and my button just snapped off. And I looked at my friend and I said, "This is the last day I'm coming to uni pregnant." And I delivered him on the Sunday and I had half term. And then I was back at school on the Monday.
Well, that was perfect timing. Your son just knew when he needed to come out, right?
Yeah, seriously. And on a Sunday, so I didn't have to pay parking fees either at the hospital.
I mean, when you're a student, every penny counts.
Yeah, you have to be economically efficient.
And so you then had to, I assume, finish off your dissertation or the final year, the
Yeah.
final few months of your undergraduate.
I had final exams and I had one thesis that I had to submit for one of my courses. So I managed to complete all of it. It was very, very difficult. Lots of resilience
Yeah,
required for that.
plenty of
But
coffee, maybe late nights.
well, you're not supposed to have caffeine when you're pregnant and breastfeeding, so
You
not
did that
that
without
much.
caffeine.
Not that
Wow.
much caffeine. Yeah. Um, I think I was hooked on iced tea at the time. Lipton iced tea was my go-to.
Sugar. Nice.
Yeah. It takes a village, I think. It was my husband, my mom, my grandmother, my mother-in-law. Everyone just pitched in to help me complete that bachelor's.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And as you said, you recognize so humbly that you had a whole entire support network, which meant that they were there to perhaps, look after you, maybe provide food or make sure you're okay.
Yeah,
But of course, you were the one still having to give those exams and finish off that thesis as well. I mean, cognitively speaking, I would have wanted to study your brain at that time.
me
That
too.
resilience it must have taken, and I'm assuming, with hormones and also, with your son being a newborn, routine,
Yes,
et cetera, right?
yes. And also that's something we studied in our masters as well. That the pre and postnatal period, how important it is.
And this was your first son, right?
Yes. Well, I
So
only
this
have
was
one, but then two.
your first child, and you were completely at the deep end of what was coming essentially,
Yeah.
and you were juggling studying as well. Does that mean the two daughters was it a piece of a cake?
It was easier. I think I knew a little bit more about what I was doing.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice. Well,
yeah.
that's resilience personified.
It definitely
Incredible.
wasn't peachy, but maybe looking back on it with some rose-tinted glasses, it looks a bit easier than it was.
And here you are now studying on a master's. I want to talk a bit about that because your father was a scientist as well. As you said, you started up a business, and I loved the saying that you said, "Fail fast and fail forward." I think that's brilliant. It eliminates the fear, which a lot of people do. It stays in their positioning so much when they're trying to start something new. So I love that. Talk me through how you got from perhaps your undergraduate degree.
Yeah. I think it was a combination. I think I always wanted to do a master's, and I think that it was a blessing in disguise that I didn't do my master's immediately coming out of my bachelor's, because I think I would have gone down a very different route. So I studied social anthropology and economics for my bachelor's, and I maybe would have gone down a anthropology route coming out of that.
Very
But
different to applied
yeah,
neuroscience, right?
very different, very different. And I stumbled upon an article about coaching and neuroscience and how when you have positive thoughts, you strengthen those neural pathways. When you have negative thoughts, you strengthen those neural pathways. And I was so amazed by it. And I thought, this is something I really want to learn about. And my grandfather was a doctor in the US. For many, many years, he was an ER doctor. And one thing he always said to us growing up was, we understand the human body, but we don't understand the human mind.
What
And
a
that,
wise man.
yes, he was a very wise man. And that just stuck with me. It was something that I had heard throughout my childhood, I'd always wondered about. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to look up this and I'm going to do some research. And through my research, I stumbled upon this KCL Applied Neuroscience course, and it aligned with so much of what I wanted to learn and the accessibility of it being an online course and me being a mom of three, having those responsibilities and having the flexibility to be able to learn at this very prestigious institute that ranked so highly. It was kind of this, this eye-opening thing where I thought, I just have to do this and I'm going to make it work somehow.
When you say that you had to make it work, what were you juggling at the time?
So I was juggling this business, this coaching business, which wasn't doing very well. In a way, I was probably running away a little bit from it. Like, okay, this isn't working out right now, so let's try something else. And although that's how it might have started, the skills that I've learned through this master's and the things that it has opened me up to and the network of people and the skills and the research skills, everything that I've gained from it, it has been one of my kind of pivot moments of my life.
Would you say that you're starting to understand the human mind?
In certain respects, yes, but I think the human mind, as you know, is so vast. And one of the things that amazes me about science and the brain is it's so unique. Every one of us is so unique in our brain and our thoughts. And even if you go down to pharmaceuticals, the drugs that will work on certain people will not work on other people. And even in scientific studies, the sample sizes are small and the data that we get from yes, it can be applied, but to small groups of people and within certain demographics as well. Because, you have this whole idea of epidemiology and mental health throughout, the world globally. And majority of the studies that we do encounter are from Western countries.
Absolutely. And of course, minimal ethnic minorities. We did also find out when it comes to, for example, female contraception, even though it's for us, it was originally tested on males with all the side effects. I still find that completely
Crazy.
crazy. But crazy, but also not too far from the truth. Like
Yeah.
I do genuinely believe that. And I feel that's the same as you said with the sample sizes. We don't necessarily have access to different cultures, but to be able to say this is the data and the results, I think that's so appropriate. And yourself the challenges of different brains, and you're a mum as well, so you have an entire family that you're having to herd and make sure that everyone's okay and everyone's safe and loved. Now I want to take you back when you said that you married when you were 18. I want to talk about that from a resilience perspective. I mean, you're still married, which is something I believe is a true test of resilience of your relationship with each other, especially from an age which we know at the age of 18, you're still developing.
Yes.
So from going from that age to where you are now and still being in the same marriage with this beautiful family, I would love for you to share some resilience facts from that. How did you keep this together? How did you both work on it? How did you yourself build that resilience from such a young age?
Yeah. I think that getting married when you're young, definitely has huge benefits as long as you have the resilience and the compromise within a marriage. So when I look back, I'm not the same person I was when I was 18, and nobody is when they reach, adulthood when they're in their 20s and their 30s. You're not the same person, and you never are the same person day to day. So I think the true success of a marriage is accepting the new version of you and all the old versions and growing together rather than growing apart. And I think that's really easy to do. It's really easy to go about your own day, focus on your own interests, and be consumed by the world around you. And I think that we live in a world now where You can be consumed by your phone 24 hours a day if you want to. And you don't have to be present with the people that are in front of you if you don't want to. So, really working on being present with that person, working on that relationship, and making sure that as the years go by, you're growing together.
That's such a beautiful phrase when you said you're growing together, because you said, you acknowledge you're both different people. And of course, which direction that relationship take is determined by both of you, right? It takes two to pull each other along. So, okay, we are growing. Let's grow in the direction that works for both of us. And then, of course, you had your children as well, which again, that can take another direction
Yeah.
altogether of
Yeah.
keeping that relationship strong with you and your husband. And mums that I have observed, and parents as well, they often do say that it's very difficult to find the time for their relationship, because the children, especially when they're young, take precedence, right? They're these human beings that need you 24/7, essentially. And your partners are grown adults. What would you say is the key to keeping that relationship with your husband strong and keeping that commitment of saying our relationship is just as important as what we have with our children?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's viewing the fact that your parents as another element to your relationship, right? So you have your marriage. That's your first commitment to one another. And you start out your marriage just the two of you. And then you choose to have a child, you choose to bring someone else into the world. And that's another element of your relationship, is being parents together and raising this little child together. And that's another commitment you make to do something together, not apart. So I think for us, the main thing was that we did it together. And it wasn't that I did certain things and he did certain things. And yes, we had different things that we were good at, but there was always a time where we did something together, where we came together, whether it was story time or whether it was he does the bath and, I'll get them dressed afterwards, but something that was us as a unit. And then I think it's also really important to have the time where it's just the two of you, to have those date nights, to get somebody to come and watch the kid for you so that you can have some time just the two of you. And I think now, as my kids are older, my son is 15, my older daughter's 13, my little one is 10. Not so little anymore, but they still need us. They don't need us physically, but they mentally need us. They need us to talk to them, to ask them about their day, to work through friend dramas or things that happened with teachers and schoolwork. And I think now we find it even harder to get that one-on-one time, especially just sitting down and talking, because the kids need to talk to us so much more. So I think that's the main thing, is to always find time for each other.
And I think that's such a good thing that the children want to talk to you.
Yeah.
When I've observed, in our generation, for example, as children, we weren't so close to our parents. It was very different for, if your parents had immigrated, and, the needs and relationship and wants were very different of, putting food on the table as an example. And that was a lot of
Yes.
time with the people around. And so when I hear that from parents of our generation saying, the kids want to talk to you all the time, they want to call me or text me, I'm like, isn't that such a wonderful gift that
Yeah.
the children, that you have created this safe space, you and your husband, that your children want to talk to you, that they want to share all their friends' troubles and, whatever is going on in the world. I think it's such a beautiful gift, given that that hasn't always been the case from what I've observed.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a credit to you and your husband to have created that space, especially when it comes to girls and boys, because both of them have such different ways of communicating, especially in their teenage years, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like you've got a proper family unit where you're so in touch with each other, and you're there for each other. And it sounds absolutely beautiful. And from when you spoke about having your son during your undergraduate degree to having all your children, it sounds like you've kept that same family oriented approach of bringing your children up, saying, look, you're not alone. We're in it with you as well, which I think is such a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
And, Safiya, you married at the age of 18, but you carry so much wisdom on how a marriage can work or be successful. Where does that come from? Is there something that you have faith in? Is it something that you've always, studied? That's some people, tend to research things. Like, what's been your method to understand what's going on and to understand next steps?
Yeah. I think it comes from my childhood. It comes from my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles. I grew up in a family that loved really strongly and showed up for the people they loved, just, no questions asked. It was just a normal thing. When I was growing up, it was nobody goes to a doctor's appointment by themselves. One person has to be with them at it doesn't
Wow.
matter what age they are, we do things together. It was dropping off, us to school. My parents would drop us off, would pick us up. And it was just showing up for the people that you loved no matter what. I remember when I graduated from my bachelor's, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, they all traveled to London for my graduation. And, it was a big thing. And when I had all three of my kids, my grandfather, my grandmother, my parents, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins, my sister, they were all here. They all showed up.
Oh, that's so special, those memories. And even when you were telling me, I was just getting chills. Like, it just felt so beautiful to have everyone around you. As you said, it's such a momentous occasion, especially when you said your graduation. I mean, how old was your son?
He was like 4 months or 5 months old at the time.
That's so incredible. As you said, they traveled to be there with you. And I love that you said that when you went to the doctors, there's always somebody with you because it is a very vulnerable position to be in,
Yeah,
especially when you're feeling unwell. To have support and to know that someone's there, it already makes you feel better,
yeah,
right? Knowing
yeah,
that they may ask questions that you may not think of because you're unwell, or just knowing that someone's there to hug you or hold your hand and make sure everything's okay. And I love that. I really, really do love that. And I want to touch upon you as a coach. So there are so many coaches out there. We're very, very blessed to live in a country where we have access to these services. So many different types, so many versions. Now, you're a neuroscience based coach, which already puts you at such a unique standpoint compared to other coaches. A lot of them are psychological based. From your business perspective of neuropath coaching, do you mind sharing with the listeners how that's different? For those perhaps who haven't had experience with neuroscience or are very interested in it but don't have much background in it, what would you say is the difference?
So, the way that I bring neuroscience into my coaching is um, a bit of a kind of informative coaching session. So, I still have, guidelines that I kind of go by when I'm coaching. And one of the guidelines is that we don't give advice. So, coaching is very much a journey that the client, the coachee, takes on their own. And as a coach, you act as a guide for them. But often in my coaching, if I find, for example, if I am coaching a client who struggles with negative thoughts, self critical thoughts, then I will ask them if they would like to know the science behind negative thoughts or negative thought patterns, or if they want to do an exercise so that they can learn how to identify those thought patterns. And then they can develop tools to coach themselves out of it. So, one of the things that I truly believe in as a coach is that you have a coach, and that coach should provide you with tools for you to be able to take away and then learn how to coach yourself. So I think that it's hugely beneficial to have a coach. I don't think that coaching is like therapy or counseling, where it is a very long process of months or years, where you're going maybe into the past and you are uncovering trauma and breaking it down for yourself and your own mental health at that time. And because I have that knowledge of mental health, I can kind of see the triggers and I can go there with my clients if they want to, but I always invite them to do that. It's never something that I push on them in any way. So, in that way, I think my coaching is slightly different, but each session for me is dictated by the person that I'm
Mm.
coaching and what they want out of it and where they want to go. And I will have clients who come to me and say, I struggle with anxiety. I want to focus on that. And because I have the background knowledge in anxiety
Mm.
and the neuroscience and what is happening in the brain, I can break that down for them so they understand that.
I love that. So what you're essentially saying is, instead of giving them the answers, you're showing them the blueprint. Okay, this is what the science is telling us so far. So it helps them understand from a deeper perspective what is going on. And then it might help them understand what they could do as a next step led on from that. And I feel like that gives them autonomy as well, because, when perhaps it comes up again and you're not around, they're going to be able to draw on that science and use that framework to move forward, as opposed to, like you said, keep coming back, which is essentially what therapy does. You come back to that safe space for, 12, 18 long term. And
Yes,
that's something you're reliant on for the therapist for. But as you said, it
yes,
sounds like you're building somebody up so that if that situation or something similar arised, you could also know that they can navigate themselves through it using what you've taught
exactly.
them.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. You want to
Incredible.
provide them with their personalized toolkit to be
Yeah.
able to deal with whatever they've come to you with. And whether that is a lack of confidence, or whether that is imposter syndrome, or whether that is anxiety, you are helping them with their personalized toolkit.
Love that. Love, love, love. Because it sounds like you're educating them, but you're also informing them. And I know you use the word informative coaching. That's exactly what it sounds like from authoritative perspective. Look, this is what our research tells us. This is how you can apply it. And then it's up to you how you decide to move forward from it.
Yeah.
Love that. Such great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah.
So in essence, if you don't see your clients again, that's a good thing.
Yes.
Know that they're
Yes.
on their own and that they're
Yeah.
working through things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, Safia, I want you to just share with listeners any perhaps projects that you've coming up, any new services, any events or anything that you would like to share with the listeners.
I don't have any events. One thing I would love to share is my newsletter that I write and send out every Friday. And it is based in neuroscience and psychology, but also in essence coaching. So I try to, at the end of every newsletter, ask you the coaching question that you can ask yourself and implement the change that I've spoken about in the newsletter for that week or longer, preferably. But yeah, I would love people to sign up to my newsletter, to maybe give me a follow on my Instagram, which I'm sure you'll link in. And yes, and come to me for any one-to-one coaching they might like.
That sounds incredible. And I think what's different of what I heard from your newsletter is that you're allowing the reader to be involved with what you're writing about, which is often, it's quite a passive thing, isn't it? When it comes to newsletters, you read it, you maybe acknowledge, or maybe you read on other information. But I love what you're doing. You're also bringing the coaching element to a newsletter to say, well, let's bring you in. Love that. Love, love, love. And I do recommend that you all follow Safia on Instagram. She has these beautiful posts that really do make you think in a good way. And they do remind you about the beautiful things about life and just how to work through things from a very objective perspective using neuroscience. And that's what I love about it. It's very different. It's not the same regurgitated information that I see on social media a lot. It's unique to you and your perspective in life. And so everything from your reels to your static posts, I love, love, love. So I do recommend listeners that you also give her a follow. It will brighten your day in the same way that I know others that have watched in on her work as well.
Thank
Are there
you.
any parting words that you would like to share with listeners on anything that we touched upon today?
It would just be keep being yourself, keep being resilient. Don't let anything knock you down. Turn every up and down into a learning experience.
I love that. And to quote your words, fail fast, fail forward.
Yes, 100%.
I
Live
love
like a
that.
scientist and turn your failure into data.
Absolutely. Get it into
Yeah.
an experiment, right? I love that.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure there'll be a follow up in the future.
I
We'll
hope
maybe
so.
talk about after the masters.
Yes, yeah. I would love that.